the feminine side. The standpoint. Still listen to the feminine side. The standpoint.
Hi there, and welcome to The Standpoint. Today's episode is unique. You can tell that I'm not in the studio. We moved from the studio to a beautiful location, and I don't even feel like going back to the studio. But we're here to have an interview, a discussion, a conversation with one of the world's best when it comes to female leaders. She has quite a history. She was the first female First Minister of Northern Ireland. At the time, she was the youngest person, not female, youngest person to be elected as the First Minister of Northern Ireland. She's now a member of the House of Lords. Now, let me bring in my bragging right. She was born in 1970, just like me. She's a last born, just like me. She was actually elected in January, and I was born in January. Yes, you know me, I'll tap into it somehow. She was in the country at the invitation of Bishop Titi Ofe, and we were privileged to get the opportunity, thanks to the bishop, to have a conversation with her. Trust me, call every single person who has the potential, the ambition, especially the young ones, not just ladies, to become leaders, to tune in and listen to it. And let me recommend the Accra Business School for you. If you're thinking about leadership, if you're thinking about being a leader in business, irrespective of your position of authority or professional position now, I recommend that you go there to have a top-up, to have a relearning, to unlearn and learn. I will be there soon, and I hope you take that opportunity. I'll take a break. When we come back, we get to meet the Right Honorable Baroness Eileen Foster. Let me say thank you to Maraba Fabrics for my fabric. And then, of course, my dress was made for me by Ja Vogue. And my makeup by Taiva. Thank you so much to her. My beads by Twinny Crafts. We'll be back.
The standpoint. The standpoint.
Welcome back to The Standpoint. I guess by now you know who I'm talking about. She has so many firsts. She has so many younger days. She has a unique story. Our guest today is the one and only former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Eileen Foster, Baroness, now member of the House of Lords, right?
That's right, yes.
Welcome to The Standpoint.
Thank you, Gifty.
And thank you so much for allowing us to have this beautiful conversation with you. How has it been so far since you came to Ghana? Your first time in Ghana?
It's been wonderful, and everybody's been so friendly and so welcoming to me. It's just been fabulous, and it is what I thought it would be, a wonderful place to visit, and I've just been so enjoying meeting all of the people that have come forward, and actually going to the African Academy of Leadership for Women. It was so empowering last night to see all of those young women stepping forward so confidently to receive their awards. It was great.
Yeah, I guess the sight of young women excites you because you started your journey, your political life very early.
Yes, I really started it when I went to university. I went to read law in Belfast at Queen's University in Belfast,
Right.
and got involved in student politics whilst I was there. So I was 18, 19 when I got involved in politics. But of course that was just student politics.
That's
It was
right.
only later, about 5 years later, that I got involved in a political party. And from there was first elected in 2003 when I was 33. So that was my first elected role.
Okay, but when you were 17, according to your bio, BBC put the spotlight on you
Yeah.
because of an incident.
Yes.
At that time, did you know that this is where you want to go, that you want to go into politics, or that was the triggering point for you?
I don't know. People often ask me, did my childhood push me in a particular direction? And you just don't know, because you don't know if you had a different childhood where you would be today. So when I was growing up, my father was a police officer, and so they
Hey,
say, yeah.
my dad was a police officer as well.
Oh, good. Another thing in common.
Yes, another thing in common, yes.
Yeah, so my father was a police officer, and we lived in a remote area and on a farm. And the IRA, a terrorist organisation, came to kill him because he was a police officer. And thankfully he survived. He was hit on the head, but he survived. But after that, we had to move from our rural farm to a town situation, so he would be safer and the family would be safer, because my parents were always thinking about the safety and security of the family.
Right.
I'm one of 4 children.
Right.
We all lived there, and my grandmother lived with us as well. Okay. So we moved to the town, and it was after that that I joined Brownies. Have you Brownies, Girl Guides, here in Ghana? Yes. So I joined those organisations, and I always say that those organisations when I was young had a real big impact on my life, because they gave me self-esteem, they gave me confidence. Right. And if I hadn't joined those organisations, I don't know whether I would have stepped forward later on in life. Right. So I always say to young women in their teens, you should join a youth organisation and get involved, right, because it really does build up your confidence, and I think it's really important. But when I was 17, I was travelling on my bus to school, and the bus driver was a part-time soldier, and because of that, again, the IRA, the terrorists, put a bomb under the bus, probably hoping to murder him when he collected the bus. Right. But the bomb didn't go off until we were on the bus. And again, thankfully, the Lord was with me, and I survived. Right. And nobody was killed. Some people were badly injured. But it was a huge moment again. And from that, I did an interview, as you rightly say, right, on the BBC, and talked about that. Have you always
been a vocal child?
I don't think I was a particularly vocal teenager. Of course, my friends may say different. But I think I really found my voice when I went to an all-girls grammar school.
Okay.
And I think that's good for girls, because it allows them to find their space. Right. Not in competition with boys, but actually in a safe space. Yeah.
So I think we have in common, because I went to a girls' school as well.
Yeah, and I think it is good for girls.
Very good.
And I know a lot of people will say it's good that boys and girls mix at secondary education, and I can understand that. But I think from an educational point of view, it's good for girls to have the space to think and articulate from their own standpoint.
I definitely agree. I did my master's in 2005 at City University in London, and for my thesis it was on multiple identities in journalism, but I veered off a bit into women across various sectors, and I realized that even then, even in UK, women in politics was a tough field.
It was a tough field generally, but even more tough in Northern Ireland when I got involved in politics, because we still had violence when I got involved in politics. There were still threats to people, actual violence, and so there were very few women who were prepared to stand out. Okay. Why would they? Why put their safety and security on the line? Exactly. And bizarrely I did, but I'd never regretted doing it, but it was a difficult time. I know today there are many challenges for young women who get involved in public life of any type, because of social media and because of the abuse that is there and the threats. So it was a different time. There were different challenges then, but challenges nonetheless.
Okay, let me take a break. When we come back, we'll get into your life as the first minister of Northern Ireland, being the first female to be elected and the youngest as well. Well, you're watching The Standpoint. We take a break. When we come back, we continue with this discussion. Remember, this program is aired on GTV as well as Joy Prime. You can also watch it on YouTube and then our Facebook page, The Standpoint. We'll be back.
The Standpoint.
Join this fight, yeah. Let us celebrate.
Akwaba.
Yeah, but
Ne ye bisa questions afa malaria ho. Na pese mi bisa o say den na osusu say ye betumi aye. They aboy ho ban e free malaria yare ho.
malaria yare ni de kan na wose ye di ehun. Ye gates ne niema ye di gugu basabasa. Ewura na de ye gugu basabasa ne eno na di malaria bakese. Cause entuntum mo pe baby a ifi wo. Enne etusumienu nso wo da se wo da net mu. Na unya ho bambo. Said the bear wunya malaria and tente malaria de ubi enya yenya bifi abonti fi so abonti antuntum to make out and yes say with that net munko a ntine sesa ne ma ne boy ho ban ubebo ho ban a ubeda net na unye fi nsu mu basabasa na bebe e won ye cleaning and gutters near proper bebe e won ho ye kama.
Join this fight, yeah. Let us eliminate malaria.
Standpoint.
Welcome back to The Standpoint. I'm having a chat with Baroness, the Right Honorable Arlene Foster, former First Minister of Northern Ireland, now a member of the House of Lords, a barrister at law, a mother, a wife, a conference speaker, motivator, mentor, feminist, proudly so. And we're having a wonderful conversation. Now, what was your role as First Minister?
So that was something I never thought would happen to me, and I think a lot of women don't have that sort of ambition, and certainly when you're the first, it's a big event. So I had been a minister of different departments before then. I'd been Minister of Environment, Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Investment, which I loved for 7.5 years, visiting many countries across the world, looking for trade and investment. And then for a short period, I was Minister for Finance and Personnel.
Okay.
So, yeah, I had been in a number of different departments, and then the opportunity came to
before
become
we get
First
back to
Minister.
Now, hold on.
Yeah.
What did you study at the university?
What did I study? I studied law at
Okay.
Queen's, yeah. So, and then I became a solicitor in private practice for a number of years before I was elected.
Okay. So you became the minister, you were Minister for Environment, Trade and Investment, and then the list goes on. How did you become?
Well, because
First
I
Minister.
became the leader of the largest unionist party in Northern Ireland, the Democratic Unionist Party, and then because of the election process in Northern Ireland, the leader of the largest unionist party becomes the First Minister then in Northern Ireland. So,
Okay, so the First Minister is like the Prime Minister, right?
well, sort of, yes.
Sort of. Okay. Right.
Yeah, there's a different system of government in Northern Ireland. Because of our peace process, we have what's called a mandatory coalition. So there's a number of different parties in the governing executive. At that time, the DUP was the largest bloc, and then you had Sinn Féin, which is a Republican party, and then 3 other parties as well. So it's more difficult because you're trying to manage an executive government with different parties in it. It's like a coalition, but it's a mandatory coalition. It's not one of that you work through to get to. So it was challenging.
Your ideologies and policies may not be the same.
Correct, absolutely. In fact, quite the opposite on most occasions. So what you're trying to do is to find the common ground so that you can actually move forward, and that can often be a challenge.
So you became the first minister
Yeah.
in 2016,
Yes.
and first female to hold that position, the youngest
At that time.
at that time,
Yes.
the youngest to ever hold that position at that time. What was going through your mind when I know you campaigned, you did everything you wanted, you fought for it, but finally when you had it, what was the first thing that hit you in the face?
Do you know what? It was a little surreal. You sometimes feel as if you're looking in at somebody else taking on the job, but it was lovely because my mother was able to be there. My father had passed away in 2011, so he wasn't there. This was 2016, but I was so pleased my mother was there. And you can't help thinking about your parents on an occasion like
Exactly.
that, I think, because they have given you the platform, provided you with the base to work off, given you the safe and secure home life that I had and I was very privileged to have. And so I think what goes through your mind is looking back at your own parents, but also looking forward at your children and thinking, well, you know what, this is a big moment because it's the first female, and that's something that my children will always have.
Did you miss your dad then?
I did.
Of course you did, but
Yeah.
do you think about what Dad would have thought?
Yes, very much, because I was a daddy's girl.
Yeah.
I was the youngest daughter. I had 2 sisters and 1 brother. No, you're not the youngest
I
daughter.
am the last of 8 children. I'm the young and I was daddy's girl as well.
Yeah.
So I always talk about my dad. I tell people if you ask me to talk about his son, my daddy's name will pop up somehow.
Yeah. It's funny the way your parents do have such an impact on your life. For some people, it's not a good impact, it's a bad impact. But for me, I was very privileged and very fortunate to have really good parents, you know, and it's lovely to think of that. My mother is now 90, she's still alive.
Oh, bless her.
And so it's wonderful to have her. As I say, my father died when he was 81, and so he was with us for a long time as well. So it's wonderful.
Awesome. It's often said that leadership can be very lonely.
Yeah.
And as a woman, it can be so lonely because sometimes you look at the tier, you are the top as the woman. You look the next level, all men. The next one, all men before you get to. Or sometimes if you're not careful, it's about the 4th or 5th tier before you see women.
Do you know what my predecessor, Peter Robinson, said to me? He said that, Arlene, at times leadership can be very lonely. And sometimes that was true. But I did try and make sure that I had networks around me, and I talked a little bit about that last night, to have networks politically, yes, but also outside of politics, to have your family and friends there so that you can shut off from what you're doing at that particular point in politics and leave it behind for a moment and move on to your family and friends. So my children were the most wonderful distraction in a positive way. I have 3 children. I have a girl and 2 boys.
Awesome.
And you would go home from a really difficult day and they would say, I don't have my rugby kit. Where's my rugby kit, Mum? And so the most important thing to them was having their kit for the next day. And so that was a good distraction because it took you away from thinking about something that was really pressing down on you in terms of politics.
Okay. You were a mother before you went into this.
Yeah.
You were a wife before that. And then suddenly this position, well, it wasn't thrust on you. You had it. You fought for it, and you had it. How to, put yourself in that position of one time I'm the quote-unquote boss lady leading a country, and then the next one I'm a mother who has to dirty her hands.
Yeah.
How were you able to change the coat, as we say it, take off the coat as the first minister and then come home and be relaxed and just see to homework, see to to that?
Well, you know what? I think actually being a mother and being a woman actually helps in leadership. And I know some women don't like being asked about their caring responsibilities. And they say, oh, you wouldn't ask a man about his caring responsibility. Actually, I don't mind because I think it shows that you can cope with a number of issues at the same time, and you're able to organise yourself and you're able to deal with those issues. So I always made simple little rules, like when the school calendar came in for the year, I would always mark off those particular events in my work calendar to make sure that I was there and I wasn't away, and I was able to go to school events and school parent-teacher meetings. If the children rang, regardless of who I was meeting at that time, I would take the call, and my staff knew that. They always said, if the children calls, she will take the call, because I didn't want them to feel that I wasn't there for them. in the way that my parents had always been there for
Right,
me.
right,
So it was simple little things like
Yeah.
that, I think,
Yeah.
which were important to me.
So from what you're saying, your upbringing also influenced the way you're bringing up your kids.
Yeah, well, I was brought up
Definitely.
in a very simple Christian home,
Right.
and my mother was a housewife and was always there for me, and I didn't want my children to think mum's not there for us. Yes, she has an important job
Yeah.
to do, and I like to think that they're proud of that, but at the same time, they have emotional needs, they have needs at school, they will want to speak to you at times.
Yeah.
And I hope that I was always there for them.
Would you say that women lead differently from the way men lead?
This is something that I struggle with because I think some people think that women will be more compassionate, more caring, more whatever, and some people I know aren't. And I mean, I think it's just about the person, isn't it, really? More than the gender of an individual, and it's also about your life experience. So if you have been a mother and you have been a wife, you're going to bring that life experience into how you lead and into how you move forward. It's a bit like people talking about religion and politics, which is often a subject matter, and people of faith are challenged to take off their religion and leave it at the door of before they go in to speak about politics. And to me, that's such a misunderstanding of what faith is, because if you're a person of faith, it's who you are. It's your lived experience. So you can't just discard it when you're going to make political decisions. It actually informs and helps your political decision making, actually. Wow. So being a woman is exactly the same. It's who you are, and it's how it informs your decisions.
That's amazing. Can you share with younger women, I'm sure you had the opportunity to speak, to share it with young female leaders when you met them, but to the wider audience, what has been your challenges and how have you navigated your political life from the age of 19 from the university till date? What are some of them, if you can share?
I think some of the challenges I faced, young women today don't have to face as much. Maybe a little bit, but as much. There are new challenges today. So I didn't have to worry about social media when I first started in politics. What I did have to worry about was the attitude of some people, including some women, who thought that you shouldn't be doing what you were doing. I mean, at that time, women, more traditional women would have thought that a woman's place is not at the top of a political party. It's there to support the men in what they are doing. So often I found that some of the most supportive people to me were actually men at the start of my career. So that was a challenge, the sort of attitudes about women's place. I don't think that's as big of an issue now for young women. I suppose when you face disappointment, how do you deal with that disappointment, and how do you face when you make mistakes? And we all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
It's how we deal with those mistakes. Do we learn from them? Do we try not to make the same mistake again? Or do we get into a black place where we think we're not good enough to do the job? And I suppose that is something that women have to deal with, I think, more than men, because men tend to shrug off mistakes and move on to the next thing. So those are the sorts of things that you have to build resilience around. And again, you shouldn't think that you're alone in having to deal with those issues. There are many women who have dealt with them throughout their political careers, and just try and learn from how they deal with it.
Yeah, you know, I smiled when you talked about the fact that when you started your political career, there were people, including women, who felt that the woman's place is supported. Young women, especially in Ghana and across Africa, still face these things, including some of us who've been in that space for a very long time. Social media hasn't, realize that we've been there long enough. So they still attack us, and there's still young women who are even afraid to be assertive, to be outspoken, to take up positions, because they've been socialized to feel that that's not the place. The attacks that will come at you, they see the attacks that come at some of us, and that deters them. Just a few days ago, I had a social media conversation on becoming a woman another woman can trust and rely on. It's still ongoing, and you wonder, when will it end? Is it just an African thing, or it's a global thing?
No, I think it's a global thing, and I think for some men, they feel threatened by women taking their space, as it were.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a competitive arena that they feel this is an area that we should be dealing with and women shouldn't be in. I think that's wrong. If you want the best people for the job, then you should have the widest pool possible, and then you pick the best people for that job. So I think there's a bit of feeling threatened. Of course, there are some people who feel it's not our role to be leaders, which I fundamentally disagree with. And it doesn't mean, I mean, I would see myself very much as a traditional woman, as a traditional Christian. That does not mean to say that I cannot be a leader. I mean, I think the two things are not mutually exclusive. I think you can be both. And I think it's important for conservative Christian women to be able to be leaders. It's not just liberal women who should be allowed to step forward.
Examples abound in the Bible.
How true is that?
Yeah.
When I have been going through difficult times, I have read Esther so many times. It's incredible.
Deborah.
And Ruth and Deborah. And
Abigail.
It's so important that women understand that their place is very much there for them.
Do you think feminism is still being misunderstood?
Yes, because I think for a lot of women, they see feminists as a liberal, left-wing agenda, sort of battling against men. I mean, I don't see myself as battling against men. I just see myself as being a human being who has been blessed to move forward in the way that I have. And I think, you know, feminism, true feminism, is about wanting women to be able to do the jobs that men do as well as men, not in competition, but alongside. And I think that's the important thing.
On that note, let me take another break. When we come back, we'll look at the way forward. What is next for this amazing woman? She's now a member of the House of Lords. What's her role there? And what is the next big thing? She's still young. She can say that she's reached the top. She still has a lot way to go. We take a break, we'll be back.
The Standpoint. The Standpoint.
Welcome back to The Standpoint. Remember, this program is also aired on GTV on Thursdays at 8:15 p.m. On Sundays on Joy Prime at 6:30 p.m. We are on YouTube and Facebook as well. And I'm talking to the former first Minister of Northern Ireland, now a member of the House of Lords of UK, a barrister at law, a mother, a wife, and a feminist as well. People always say that, why do you say a mother first before a wife? Because you have to be a wife before you become a mother. just by the way. Do you think you've reached your peak as a politician?
Well, I don't know what plans God has for me. I have to wait and see. And I mean, this is the thing. If you'd have said to me 5 years ago that I would be out of local politics, I would be in the House of Lords, I would be writing, giving speeches, I mean, I wouldn't have said that that would have happened. But that has, I mean, things happen along the way. Obviously, you try and have a plan for your life. You go to university, you become a professional person. But I have really enjoyed this last couple of years after leaving office of First Minister, doing different things, being able to come out to Ghana and speak to young women about leadership. What an opportunity that has been, and it has been really good.
Shall we try Prime Minister?
I think that's been done. Yeah, we've had a number of female Prime Ministers. It's been wonderful. Actually, when I look back at my younger days, Margaret Thatcher was our first female Prime Minister, and she went in 1979 when I was just 9, and right throughout my teenage years was there. And I think that that did have an impact upon me, because when I left office as the first female First Minister in Northern Ireland, a number of young women actually wrote to me and said, you know, we didn't realise how important it was to have a woman in that job until you left. Yeah. And now we realise, you know, it was good to have a woman in position.
Yeah. Now, let me quote something you said, that most of the time, some of the challenges we have as women leaders, that we sometimes can't believe that we are truly leaders.
Yes.
we can't seem to accept that this is a position we find ourselves in. Now, I want you to put yourself in that position. And when you look back, what has been your greatest impact in the role you played in Northern Ireland politics?
Yeah. So, but that's something I think a lot of women suffer from, this imposter syndrome, that really I shouldn't be here, you know, what am I doing here? Some of the things I'm particularly proud of is the fact that we've enjoyed a period of good economic development. We're able to bring many jobs into Northern Ireland, develop our tourism product after years of troubles. We have a wonderful tourism industry now in Northern Ireland, and I was looking after that for 7.5 years. Right. But I think the biggest, probably single thing that I'm proudest of is the fact that we now have the best broadband connectivity in the whole of the UK.
Wow.
And we were able to deliver that because we went into a confidence and supply agreement with Theresa May when she became Prime Minister. Wow. And I think that is so important. Yes, it's important for businesses, but what really touches me is when parents say to me, thank you for bringing broadband. It means our children can go online.
Right.
They can do their homework. They don't have to go to the library to do their homework now. They can do it at home. Right. And so for rural communities, it's really important to have that connectivity. You know that the world is so connected now. Yes. I mean, I did that interview with the Ghanan ladies in leadership before I left Northern Ireland. So I was in Northern Ireland in Belfast. Right. The person who was interviewing me was in Qatar, in Doha. Right. And we were speaking to the ladies in Ghana. No. That is amazing. It's amazing. But it can only happen if you have the infrastructure to do that. Right. And so that's something I'm very proud of.
Would you say as a Christian that was prophetic? Because then COVID happened. Yeah. Schools had to close down and they had to do schooling online, even right here in Ghana. Yeah. So just imagine if you didn't have an effective broadband there. Yeah, yeah. Well, it was only really developing then. It's now in place as of last year. So some people didn't have it for COVID-19. But COVID-19, I would safely say, and I know you've written about your experiences, was the most difficult time in my political life because you were taking decisions which affected people's way of life and they were cocooned in their own homes. Right. They weren't able to see people, children weren't at school, you weren't able to be with people as they were passing into the next life. It was a very, very difficult time for politicians to have to take those decisions. I felt it very keenly. Yeah. Now your role as a member of the House of Lords. Yeah. What exactly do you do? So the House of Lords in the UK system is a revising chamber. So when legislation comes to us from the House of Commons, we can't block it, but we can change it for the better. So it's about looking at laws, and back to my lawyer days, about looking at laws and trying to make them better and looking at the consequences of them when we bring it in. So I really enjoy it. It's a very thoughtful place. Because like going back to your first love, that is law. It's a very thoughtful place, and you have people there who have reached the top of their professions in education, in industry, in politics, and they're giving their time to scrutinise laws in a very effective way, I think. So I really do enjoy the House of Lords, I have to say. And I'm a non-affiliated member. It means I'm not attached to any particular party. Okay. And it allows me to be independent. Okay, so you're not attached to any political party. You're not directly or indirectly representing Northern Ireland? No, but I always will. You always will, but you ain't elected there. No, it's not elected, you're appointed. I was appointed by the Prime Minister. Okay. And that's how you get there. Okay. You've had an amazing journey so far. I have, and I'm very thankful for it. It's been wonderful. But we are still young, because we are of the same age. We are. There's still a lot ahead of us. If you were to look into the crystal ball, what would you love to do in the next 5 years? Well, I hope I can use what I have learned and the skills and experience I've picked up along the way to really empower other women in other jurisdictions, and that's why I'm so delighted to be in Ghana. I'd also like to go to other areas of the world where women perhaps are not
as empowered as they should be, and to try and assist them with that in their different cultures. It breaks my heart when I see women such as the young people in Ghana, or not in Ghana, in Afghanistan at the minute, and to look at how they can't even get education properly.
Right.
And it's how we can empower women around the world so that they can reach their potential, and that's all we ask for them to do.
Absolutely. You have a foundation, that's the Gifty Foundation. We've had this Girl in Need Foundation where we help girls 18 years and below to go to school and stay in school. That's been running for the past 12 years.
Wonderful.
And it's just amazing. Just yesterday at the award ceremony, I met one lady coming from the north who is a beneficiary of this, and it was, aside the honor of being made a fellow, that was the proudest moment for me.
Absolutely.
Seeing this girl. I remember when she walked into my office, had no support, to go to school, to stay until she had dropped out, come to Accra to be a head porter, at the market. Now, gone all the way to the university, and now graduating, becoming a leader. That's just so fulfilling, and that's something people don't understand, that you devote yourself to do this.
Yes. No, it's so powerful when you help young women to reach their potential, and I think that's something that you and I, again, have in common.
Well, yeah. And the passion still continues.
The passion continues, absolutely, and I always will have a passion for my country, and promoting it across the world as a good place to live and to invest and to come and visit. And Northern Ireland will always be at the forefront of everything that I do.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. But in your conclusion, what would you say to all the young ladies glued to their center, their phones, their laptops, watching you? What is your message, that final message for them?
That leaders are not born, but everybody has the potential to be a leader. It's just whether you listen, engage, use the passion within you, and then step forward with confidence to do the thing that you really want to do. So have that confidence, is what I say to every young woman. It's within them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's an honor speaking to you and listening to your story.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. And wish you the best.
Thank you.
And may God take you to the next greatness
Thank you so
level.
much.
Thank you. I'll be back with a bit of me.
The standpoint.
One of the topics, or one of the issues I addressed in my third book, that's 50 Nuggets at 50, it's about how people just won't let me. Somehow I find myself in positions of leadership wherever I find myself, either because I talk too much or because I don't mind being in the faces of people. But I wasn't born a leader. When you read any of my books, where I grew up in, how my life was then, leadership was not even on my mind. But somehow from primary school to secondary school to tertiary to my professional life, listen, no one was born a leader. Leadership is sometimes bestowed on you, or you are groomed to be a leader. Circumstances push you to be a leader. But whatever it is, however you find yourself or you found yourself in that position, it behoves on you to live up to expectation. It takes sacrifice. In a bit of me, my first book, I talk about when society decides. Yes, I'm a strong believer of don't let people dictate to you, but when you hold a certain position of leadership, society dictates, because the ethics of that position, the rules and regulations, the expectations, you can't just afford to just do anything. These days, and thanks again to the great man, Bishop Dr. Gideon Titiofe, he talks about servant leadership, where you must be seen to be doing it, not just saying it. You must be seen to be doing it. Lead by example. Lead by doing, not just saying it. and giving instructions. So ladies, a charge to keep we have. We have a lot, our generation, our younger ones, especially our younger women, need us. And we need to rise to that position of authority and leadership and guide by living, showing them that it can be done and done the right way. I'm a woman with super crazy faith in God. I know God has got us covered, but He has also given us wisdom. We've been called into boldness. It is an era of rising up boldly and saying no to what is wrong and saying yes to what is right. Speak up. Lead the way God taught us to lead. Thanks for watching. See you same time next week. And don't be afraid to be a leader. Bye for now.